All right, welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Harris, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. What's up with you?
It's good. It's good. Normal service has resumed on the podcast following Ramadan.
Yeah.
I don't know if some of our viewers or listeners caught on to this, but I thought the energy levels in a couple of previous podcasts were a little low.
Yeah. No, there were. I mean, definitely.
Like, I was tired,
We didn't have coffee, man.
Didn't have coffee.
And we were fasting.
That's
so
absolutely true. Absolutely
we didn't
true.
have water.
Yeah.
Forget about coffee.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah.
All right, so I thought we have a bit of a packed podcast for this episode, and maybe we'll divide this into two. We'll see how the discussion flows and goes.
Yeah.
And I thought we always cover self-development stuff, things that would help people with the pursuit of their career or their dreams in entrepreneurship, and it's very much self-development oriented. But I thought for today's podcast, we'd sort of take a different tack and talk about some current events and current trends that we see in business. Right? Mm-hmm. And I think this is something we'll try to do from time to time, just to give our thoughts on what's happening around us, around the world, etc. Mm-hmm. And the topic I thought we'd pick for today is a topic that is you're very familiar with. And let's be honest, all Canadians love to talk about this. And that is the Canadian real estate market.
Yeah.
Right? So we'll go into it, and then we'll cover a few questions that I have. We'll see how much we cover in this episode. And if we can't cover everything, we'll split it into two.
Yeah.
All right? So first, I wanted to cover, number one, what's going on with the Canadian real estate market, specifically in Toronto.
Okay.
Number two, how are people affording these crazy prices that we see right now? Number three, a lot of people suspect this is a sort of a fundamental driver towards real estate, and is immigration driving the prices of real estate up? Number four, let's talk about some of the incentives in the real estate market. Number five, some of the second order effects. And number six, where do we go from here? So we might have to split this into two episodes, but you know what? Let's cover it. Let's see where it goes, and then we can kind of decide from there.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Good. So number one, Horace, because you have a unique perspective, because you really sort of work in this industry. So what's going on with the real estate market, in your opinion? What's going on right now? And apologies for the ruffling of the papers. I've done quite a bit of research on this, so I hope our listeners and viewers appreciate this. But
when you say what's going on, are you asking why the market's kind of heating up?
I guess two questions maybe, and I wanted to address this in this question all in one. What's going on right now, and then what has been going on, like this long-term sort of secular trend that's been happening in the Canadian real estate market? Of these prices just going up since since the financial crisis. But let's talk about what's happening today, so specifically 2021, and then what has been going on in the market since, since you've started your practice.
No, but I mean, okay, if I could start with what started it, right? I feel like the macro trends were after 2008. The Canadian economy was in decent shape. It was only one of the few economies that was in decent shape, and it attracted a lot of international investment. Right? And so people needed money to park, a place to park their money, and Canada was a good economy because our banks were like relatively good, and our economy was safe. It was and a rule of law is pretty good. So, and at that time, Europe was completely crushed.
I remember it was the sovereign debt crisis in Europe. Like Greece debt was like they were about to go bankrupt. Italy, same thing.
And they're trying to figure out how are we going to do that?
Yeah.
And like
it was
Germany,
a disaster. I remember.
The Germans were like we're
lifting all of Europe.
Yeah.
Screw these guys.
And it was pretty much up to them to see if they wanted to bail out all these other. But whatever that issue was, right? That wasn't the best place to invest.
Yeah.
The States was recovering, but it was still not as stable of a market as Canada was, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that started getting people in, and prices started going up.
Right.
Now, that's kind of the macro. Overall, I think prices everywhere were going up as well, because not only was investment coming in, you just had loads of quantitative easing around the world. All the central banks, like G7 countries, were figuring out how they're going to print more money off, essentially. And that was kind of raising the boats in like everywhere.
So for people who don't know what the hell quantitative easing is, could you explain very simply? Because let's be honest, our audience, not everybody's a CFA. What is quantitative easing?
Quantitative easing, in a very kind of, I guess, succinct way,
explain it to your
is a
grandmother.
central bank like just printing money and throwing it into the economy.
Yeah,
right?
Right.
So they're creating money and through financial instruments, they're making sure more of this currency is in the market. So, for example, if there's 1,000 Canadian dollars circulating in the market, quantitative easing's effect will be that now there's 1,200 Canadian dollars or 1,500 Canadian dollars circulating in the economy, right? I don't
So
know
they
if
print more money.
Yeah. So they're just printing more money, which means that you have inflation. Prices everywhere go up. So we had a general increase in pricing across the world, right? Which is also why you had that Arab Spring and all of that. It was not necessarily revolution. It was, you had people who were spending like 20-30% of their incomes already on food, now spending 50 to 80, and now they don't have like money to pay rent.
Yeah.
And so now that causes a revolt. So that's why you had a lot of that. Those are kind of the underlying tensions. There's also other political issues and stuff as well, but I would say the catalyst was that, right?
Right.
And so prices everywhere were going up. Canada was experiencing maybe a little bit faster increases just because also on top of that, our economy was good too because money was trying to find a safe haven. So I think that overall was kind of bringing up the prices. As a result, I feel like Canadians started approaching their house similar to what the Americans did pre-2008. So they started spending off of the increased value in their houses because they're like, I could borrow and then spend and buy and whatever. And so now, like, I mean, you know what? Since '08, I feel like you just see any more like luxury vehicles on the road than you ever did before in Canada.
In Toronto? In Canada, yeah. So you were saying a lot of people are buying these vehicles based on the equity in their home.
So they're like just refinancing, taking it out, whatever, buying TVs.
Do you see a lot of that come across your desk?
I do see a lot of people who are refinancing, and it's more like sometimes people do the exit strategy is I've bought a house in Toronto 30 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not really attached to Toronto. I don't really care.
Right.
I'm going to take this equity, spend it, and then once it's done, I'm going to sell the house and move 2 hours north or wherever, east, west, wherever, right? And you had a lot of people do that who just sold their house and then they moved off.
Yeah.
And they had an extra amount of money that they could then go and spend on whatever they want. I feel like, this is just my opinion. I feel like incomes didn't rise in the same ratio as houses did. Right?
House prices did, yeah.
So let's say you buy a house for like $500,000.
Yeah.
And your income's $50,000.
Yeah.
Right? If that house value goes up to $1 million, you can't borrow up to $1 million, right? If your salary stays the same, which it has for most people, salaries haven't really gone up that much.
They haven't.
Yeah. So now the banks still want to tap into that equity. They know that you have value. So what are they going to do? They're going to give you credit cards because credit cards are not that as regulated. And you can give it to anybody you want, right? And if you have a house, you know you're going to get it one way or the other, right? So I feel like that happened. And I feel like just in general, Canadians got a bit, they like leverage.
Yeah.
So, and we've been leveraging
It's
them.
become okay. It's become okay to have this much leverage, for sure. Sure.
So I think that's the kind of the macro trends that now kind of enter into this new pre-COVID era, right, where prices are going up and we've had crazy years. Then it's kind of the government stepped in. 2017 was a crazy year. There's a lot of those people, again, buying houses without looking at them or without putting on any conditions. Government started stepping in and they started raising the qualifying rate. So a qualifying rate and the effective rate, the difference would be you could take out a mortgage for 2% to 3%, but you have to qualify to be able to pay a mortgage at 5%, right? And so there was a lot of that, and that kicked in and that kind of slowed down people's affordability because the truth is prices go up and down, a lot of it based on how much you can borrow, right? So if you can borrow an extra $100, how much of debt can you take off of for that extra $100, and how much can you go and buy a house for?
Yeah.
So that started happening. Then COVID hit, and then everybody got scared. They're like, "Yo, is this market just going to stop? What's going to happen?" Right? Because a lot of it is just riding. A lot of the Canadian economy is riding on real estate, as bad as that is, right?
It is.
Right? And I feel like it always has. There isn't like, we don't have other really strong sectors other than just like exporting like raw materials, minerals, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Commodities. But like outside of that, I feel like it's real estate. And so we had like there was a panic, and then they brought down interest rates again. This is a long story.
Yeah.
They brought down the interest rates, and then I feel like that just kicked up the affordability, and people are now buying for a host of other reasons. A, they don't know like how much inventory there is because people are gonna sell their house or not. There's like that frantic reality.
Yeah.
I do feel like there should be reform. That's a different story, but they don't know, like there's no predictability, and that makes people act erratically. Right, especially if they're like, "Oh my God, I've got a kid on the way, or I want to buy my first house, or whatever it is." They're gonna be like, "I just got to get in."
Yeah.
And so
FOMO.
there's that. Yeah, there's FOMO, and then there's like, "Oh, if I don't get in now, I won't be able to afford a house ever." There's also the fact that if like when interest rates are at offers are coming in at like 1.34, 1.44, 1.54.
Yeah, interest rates. Yeah, mortgages.
Yeah, and so that just kicks up your affordability, and on top of that. A lot of people have not been spending that money. Everything's closed. Restaurants are closed. You can't go buy clothes. You can't go buy any other things. So your savings are kind of going up as well to go into that down payment. So now there's like the perfect storm for your affordability to go up. Yeah. And you're getting like COVID monies at times.
Yeah.
Right. So there's like a perfect storm for people to kind of go out and actually bid up the. Also, another thing is quantitative easing, right? Like there's more quantitative easing. There's more money floating around. So it's just it's a perfect storm for free money or easy money for like prices to go up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That was a lot that you said.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. I'm going to unpack a little bit of it too, but I have a little bit of data that we can go through as well. And it's actually very similar points to the ones you just made. Number one, looking at this at a macro level, so zooming out, you talked about how the government lowered interest rates in 2008, and that sort of kicked up the Canadian real estate market since then. If you look at a chart of housing prices versus interest rates, there's a complete inverse relationship. Basically, what you see is if you look at this chart on Google, house prices go up and to the right. And interest rates go basically down and to the right. And there is a clear inverse relationship. So basically the two things are going in opposite directions. And it clearly shows you that one of the factors, I'm not saying it's the only factor, but one of the key factors why house prices have gone up in the trajectory that they have is because interest rates have been basically trending down.
Yeah.
Right? And they have been, like you just said, at historically low levels. That's one. I would say this as well. A lot of people in Canada, sometimes, you're in your own bubble and you think, this is just happening in Toronto. But if you look at European economies like Sweden, the UK, Australia, which is a very similar country to the way we are, housing prices are doing the exact same thing. Because central banks globally did the same thing you just described. That is QE, so buying a shit ton of bonds, right? Maintaining rates at historically low levels because, let's be honest, they haven't been able to see. I guess the bank can't measure inflation for whatever reason. And it's been causing this effect. There are unintended consequences to any public policy, whether that's any government policy, whether that's done by the central bank, politicians, etc. And this has been one of the unintended consequences of low interest rates, right? They lowered interest rates because they wanted to kickstart the economy. Right, to make it cheaper for businesses to borrow, to hire, to expand. I believe, I'm not sure how that's worked out because I haven't looked at the data. I'm assuming it's worked out to a certain extent. I don't know. But one of the unintended consequences of this is that it basically lit a fire on real estate. Basically, it was like a match that just went off.
I mean, you have to also look at it in terms of, 40% of all U.S. currency in circulation was printed out in the last 12 months. More than 40%.
That's nuts.
Right.
And that's absolutely insane.
And the U.S. dollar is a reserve currency. So it's not like that. The U.S. currency is not isolated only to the U.S. That money is being exported. That inflation is being exported to all around the world.
Yeah.
Right? Because that money is being borrowed at 0% or whatever. And now you're trying to spend it in other countries as well as in the States. Right? Now, if you look at in terms of any kind of retail business, they're suffering. Any kind of commercial business, whether it's retail or office, There's those investments are suffering.
Yeah.
Right. You have restaurants, businesses that are suffering. There's very few areas now that money can go and find a return. And residential prices seem to be where it is because people are now thinking, okay, well, there's also a trend now, obviously, of working at home. So maybe you want a bigger home, you want to upsize, you want to do whatever you want. And now that you're spending more time at home, you want to invest in your house and make it look better. There's a lot of things going on, and there's a lot of pressures financially and just behaviorally speaking as the society that are pushing residential prices up. And it's not like it's again, it's not only in Canada, it's also in the States. And in the States, if you look at, like, now all places are going up. Yeah. But you have to look at, like, for example, if you compare States and Canada, States has a lot more bigger cities. Yeah. Right? And so if you have, like, San Francisco kind of went down because people are moving out. But if you look at Texas or Florida, it's the same thing.
Those markets are going up.
They're going up.
I mean, even in Canada as well. Like, Calgary's pretty soft, right? Because it's an oil-based economy. A lot of people aren't moving there for jobs, etc. But if you look at Toronto and Vancouver, like, holy cow,
they're pretty
strong markets, right? Yeah. The other thing about affordability that you mentioned, actually, and I did a little quick calculation on this. Do you remember what interest rates were before COVID? I'm assuming, like, let's say they were around 2%. Let's say you got a mortgage with a 2% interest rate. I think it was higher than that, but let's just assume it
was higher, yeah.
It was higher, right? Yeah, okay, so anyway.
It's between 2 to 3, you could say.
2 to 3, okay. Yeah. So I did just a rough calculation, basically assuming that you buy $1 million house, you put down 20%, so you take a mortgage of $800,000 over 25 years. What's your payment at a 2% interest rate? What's your payment at a 1.5% interest rate, which is sort of the rate that you see now? Mm-hmm. It gives you savings going from 2.2% to just 1.5%, so that 50 basis point decrease. You have $200 more of affordability every month. Essentially, you save $200, right? And you're saying the difference was actually bigger than...
I would say, but 200, how much can you borrow off of that 200 then, right?
Yeah, no, true. I didn't factor that in. I assumed it's all the same.
Yeah, so if you do 200 times 12, you've got...
2,400 a year.
Yeah, and then you do 5.5 times that for borrowing, roughly. Yeah. Right? So that is roughly like 13,000 or something. 13,
extra 14,000 on the price. Yeah,
on the price that you're getting for every 200.
That's crazy, dude.
Right? So, and that is... Wait, so 1.5%, 2%... Where did you get the $200 in a figure from again?
The $200 is just the savings between a mortgage payment with a 2% and then a mortgage payment of 1.5%. Yeah. But I think
that depends on the price as well. You're looking at the average price?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's $1 million. It's the same price. Yeah. You take a mortgage of $800,000.
Yeah, but if you look at, like, now, for example, you're looking at 20% down.
Yeah, 20
If you
down.
Look at, like, something that's like a high ratio mortgage, which is 5% down, the $200 will give you the same amount to spend more, but the price bump that your affordability is exponentially more. You get what I mean? Mm-hmm. So then if you save $200 on that same mortgage and it's a high ratio mortgage, you can go out and buy and spend more on the house.
Interesting. I think the Globe and Mail, so that $13,000 figure you calculated, the Globe and Mail had something like $20K, I guess, because interest rates were a little higher pre-pandemic. But yeah,
they were not 2%. They were like
the same.
They were like 2 to 2.5.
2.5. Wow. So they've come down like a full percentage point. That's a lot.
Yeah, they've tanked, man.
Yeah, that really does something for affordability. And I guess I was looking at just the trajectory of housing prices since like whenever. And I used the website. So this is the average price of a home. Average price of a home in Toronto. So when you do average price of a home, it includes everything, right? Like mansions. It includes detached, townhomes, condos, everything. So in 2011, April 2011. Oh my God. April 2011, average price was $428,000. Yeah. April 2021, it's $896. So it's effectively gone up 2x. So more than 2 times.
Yeah. I was looking at like freehold townhomes in Caledon.
Yeah.
And their starting was like $910,000.
$910,000.
Yeah, and Caledon is not as developed as like. So, like Peel region, there's Mississauga, Brampton, and Caledon.
Yeah.
And Caledon is, I would argue, the least overall developed, right?
Yeah.
In Mississauga and Brampton.
Right.
And that I would never have imagined that like a townhome to be 910,000 starting. And I'm just like, what the
out
heck?
of all places.
Yeah.
I did want to say two more things. And the first one is just how experts get the trajectory of the real estate market completely wrong.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to impart to people is that when someone says, an agent or anybody says, oh, I know where the market is going, let me tell you something. Nobody does, okay? And I'll give you a classic example that happened during this pandemic, and that was from the CMHC, the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation, which is like, let's be honest, they should know housing because they are the government body that sort of regulates and oversees housing, correct? And provides mortgage insurance. So if you recall, in May 2020, when the pandemic started, the head of CMHC came out and said, we expect housing prices, real estate to go down by 20%, up to 20%. That was a bold prediction. He said by 20%. Okay, that was
came
May
in and
2020.
said made similar.
A lot of people said the same thing. Yeah. So May 2020. Okay, a year later, after housing prices went on an absolute tear, May 2021. So CMHC just came out with another prediction, and they said in 2021 they expect housing prices to increase by 14%.
It's insane. But you know what I want to know, and what I haven't seen, is the volume of the trades. Like how many houses have been sold. Right. Because
volumes were low in 2020 for sure.
They were definitely low.
They were definitely impacted.
Overall volumes, like you could see, like for example, September skyrocketed all this up, but overall volumes were low. So there is you could say pent up demand.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like for COVID, one of the few places where pent up demand works is in the housing market.
Yeah.
Because people need to buy bigger houses to start off, and if they don't buy it now, they're gonna buy it tomorrow. It's not like people are like saying there's pent up demand with restaurants. No, that is never gonna happen. That demand is gone. I'm not gonna go buy like 10 meals next time
because I didn't have it. It's so true.
No, I'm just gonna go back to the same routine. That loss is gone.
Yeah.
Right. But with a house, it's like, oh, if I'm not gonna get it now, I'm gonna get it tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm just gonna postpone the plan, but it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. The other thing I wanted to cover, and this is some analysis that was done by a guy named Ben Carlson in the U.S. He writes a blog called A Wealth of Common Sense, which is one of those personal finance blogs, which I follow quite closely. I'll put a caveat here. It's applicable to the U.S. market only, less so to Canada, but nonetheless, it's an interesting data point to have. And he says that monthly payments today to afford a mortgage have obviously gone up because prices have gone up too, right? So the monthly payments are definitely bigger for mortgages. However, if you account for interest rates, so one is just based on the monthly payment based on the price of a house. If you take into account interest rates as well in both periods, so in 1989 and now, payments today are only 50% higher because interest rates were so much higher in 1989, right? So the payment was lower in 1989, but once you add the interest rate, it became this bigger payment.
Yeah.
Now the payment is whatever it is with principal and interest. Comparing the two, today's payment is only 50% higher, despite housing prices being so much higher. Yeah. And that's because interest rates were so much higher in 1989.
But 89, okay, hold on. So before, sorry, not to cut you off, but one caveat to that is that in the States, and something that we're not going to see again, and in the 80s is when Paul Volcker was in Federal Reserve, I think. He was the chairman.
Okay.
And he was trying to curb inflation. He hiked interest rates to like 20% or whatever it was, 25.
Yeah.
So there's nobody like, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I don't think like we had that 2025 and slowly it's been everything, like the interest rate's been coming down and Greenspan's just tanked it. And since then, prices have gone up, and it's like a direct correlation. You have a little bit more money, and interest rates are less, so you can afford more. I don't think it could keep happening. I don't know. You know what? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like, all right, you're going down. We're at 1 point, whatever. When we get to zero, are we going to get into negative? I don't think we're going to get into negative.
Some countries are, though. Like, I think Sweden is negative rates.
But I feel like you have Japan.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sorry.
So Japan, all right?
Yeah,
They had negative interest rates, and they've had a lost decade.
they have.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't know if it could happen. Again, it could happen.
Right.
But I feel like the States is going to be like, I feel like Canada takes a lot of their cues that coordinate with the States.
We do.
Yeah.
We do.
Like it's
The
pretty
States,
much.
the U.S. sneezes, Canada catches a cold.
Yeah, yeah.
As they
So
say.
if they start doing QE,
Yeah.
Canada starts doing QE as well, so that our currency doesn't look, too strong in front of the U.S.
They're
dollar.
our biggest trading partner, to be honest.
So I feel like there's a lot of coordination with Europe as well. But I don't know if they're going to get into like any kind of negative. Effective interest rates are going to be negative through quantitative easing, but like nominal interest rates,
Yeah.
right? I don't know if those are going to be negative.
Yeah. Interesting. So I wanted to continue on this point I made about the whole, like the payment today being 50% higher. So adjusted for inflation, what he says is that mortgage payments are actually 30% lower than what they were in 1989.
Yeah.
Adjusted for inflation, because let's be honest, money back then is worth more than money today, right? Time value of money. So what he says is, although the sticker price of a home is high, the affordability, the monthly payment that you make today is effectively only slightly higher depending on the way you look at it, looking at it on a nominal basis versus adjusted for inflation. So I thought that's quite interesting. That, okay, we might think that housing is crazy, but
there's another caveat to the inflation part, though.
Yeah.
The way they calculate inflation, I don't agree with, because they'll substitute things, right? So if like they
take
have
things
steak,
in it out?
right, and like they'll take that out, be like, oh, nobody's eating steak anyways because the price is going up, or substitute it with chicken.
Yeah.
When chicken's like, oh no, chicken price going up, all right, let's put it with Spam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
so then it keeps the official rate low, and I feel like the real rate is much higher.
Yeah.
Inflation rate is much higher.
Okay. Interesting.
So and it's only for consumer goods. I don't think salaries have gone up that as much.
Yeah. Unbelievable. So, any other points on just what's going on with the relationship? Maybe what we'll do for this podcast is just cover question number one, because we both have a lot to say.
One?
Yeah, there are 6 questions. We'll cover.
This is going to be 6 podcasts.
We'll cover questions 2 to 6 in the next podcast. We'll try to hurry it up.
Right.
But now we're just, sort of laying the land about what's happening. Anything else interesting that you're seeing? Like, what's another trend? Do you see a lot of people? Because I used to see a little bit of this from a lot of, anecdotally speaking, like a lot of people, what they used to do is they go to get into the whole house flipping game because the prices keep going up like forever.
You have that.
Yeah, they keep like what they do is they basically, a family moves into a home, they renovate it a little bit, sell it, move into another and do it again.
Yeah.
Keep on doing it. Do you see a lot of that behavior?
I think for me right now, it's too early to tell because people, for them to like, in order for you to make your money back at break even, the price has to go up at least like 12%, right? Because you're paying realtors, you're paying all
the
these
costs
other
to get in and out.
Land transaction costs, all that stuff. So
right.
It needs to go up at least 12% for you to break even. So it's too early to tell. But I definitely see a lot of people trying to just get the highest offer, book the house, and then try to flip that contract to somebody else.
Okay.
And that's a shortcut way as well. Right. So there's that, and then you assign the sale to somebody else. But I would definitely imagine what you're saying is true. We'll find out in the next year or so.
Yeah. Do you see? I've noticed a couple of things. Yeah. Number one is a lot more people are becoming part-time real estate agents, like as a side hustle, right? Like everybody's doing this because the commissions can be quite lucrative. Let's be honest. And the other thing is, everybody aspires to be a real estate investor now.
Oh yeah.
Everybody's become a sophisticated
anything
investor.
in and around. I think mortgage brokers, the amount of mortgage brokers has gone up as well.
Okay, anything tied to real estate is it?
I'm not don't quote me, but I feel like it's the number was around 30% hike or some really big jump of new brokers coming into the industry. Anything in and around real estate is kind of feeling the bump.
Has picked up.
Or picked up, not feeling the bump, but yeah.
Basically,
you know what I mean?
People trying a new career, they're like, there's money to be made here, let's do it. Yeah. 100%. All right, so you know what? We'll wrap it up now. Now, that covers really question number 1, and apologies if it was a little haphazard, but we wanted to sort of give our thoughts on what's going on with the Canadian real estate market. On the next episode, we'll cover, how are people affording these prices, basically our opinions. Is immigration driving the prices of real estate? Incentives, second order effects, and then where do we go from here?
Yep, sounds good.
All right. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Take care, guys.
Take care.